like I have to be in the mood to tell a story. I tried on Saturday and it was forced, you could tell. And then on Tuesday, I tried to upload that version of the forced version of the story, but YouTube, who cares? But YouTube was not having it. It was like, no, I'm not going to cooperate today. And I just didn't feel like, I was just lazy, and I didn't feel like staying up late and figuring it out because I'm a procrastinator. So it's Thursday, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to delete everything, and I'm going to start again and pick up where we left off last time, because I'm actually in the mood to tell a story, and so it won't sound so forced. Like, I was like, okay, so I got into the room. Like, that's how bad it was. It was forced. Okay. So where we left off was the orderly had come down and eye raped me, and that's horrible. I shouldn't say that. Okay. Where we left off is that the orderly came in and had touched my leads, and they had pulled my gown up and blah, 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 and I was freaking out, and then they sent me away with the male orderly, and we went on with life. Anyway, so I get into my room, and my mom is in there, and as soon as I see her, I just start bawling. And and it was just her and the nurse, and she was like, oh, are you in pain? Does it hurt? And I just kept shaking my head no. And I didn't want to say anything with the orderly there, because the logistical part of my brain that was still a little bit sober was like, he probably didn't know that you weren't supposed to be alone with him. But I was still wondering what he was doing looking under my gown. At that point, I was looking. It kind of makes sense now, but I was still pissed off. So, anyway, so I just waited for the orderly to leave, and the new nurse was like hooking me all up and asking me some questions, and I was still just crying, and finally she left, and my mom was like, what's the matter? And I just said, they left me alone with the male orderly, and he was like looking under my gown at my leads, and the nurse was so mean. Like, I probably sounded like, you know, when you were little and, Mom, she said she didn't want to be my friend anymore. Like, you know, that kind of a deal. Like, I was, yeah. So my mom on you, you stupid nurse. So, I was just like, the nurse was so mean, and I was in so much pain, and they left me alone, and it's like they didn't even listen to anything, blah, blah. And so she finally got me to calm down, and the rest of the night is kind of a blur. Like I have stated plenty of times before, I was so heavily medicated that it's really hard for me to remember the rest of that night. Later that night, though, after my mom left, by the way, BTW, my new nurse that was on the floor with me, amazing. I'm not going to say her name because I've told you where the surgery is, and I don't want to do that. But she's named after a city in the United States. I don't know if she's named after that city, but there's a city in the United States that shares the same name as her. And I know you're thinking that really narrows it down. Why do we even care? Let's keep going. So, my nurse was amazing. So I did have to get up later that night and walk, and that was horrible. And I could only make it like 5 feet away from my room, and then I had to go back because I have a rather large stomach. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty big. And since most of the weight that I've gained is in my stomach, it like pulls down, and so my abdomen was like pulling down on my stitches, and it hurt so bad. So I would have to like hold on to my IV pole with one hand and like put my other hand under my stomach and lift it up, because that's disgusting, but so that it wouldn't pull on my stitches. So we went for a walk, and then I told the nurse when she came in a little bit later after my mom left, like we talked, and she said, you know, I've looked at your chart, and I see like your special requests and things on here. And then she was like, is there anything else that we can do to make you comfortable? And I was like, no. And I said, okay, this is surgery number 13, not my first rodeo. So I kind of know how things work. And I know that when you're in the hospital, the lab likes to come around early in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning, and get your blood. And they don't announce themselves or anything. They just come on in and flip on the light and give me your arm and blah, blah, blah. So I told them that I requested that it not be male, and if, like, that the lab guy not be male, and if it was, to have him check in at the nurse's station and have a nurse come in with him. And they're like, oh yeah, we can totally do that. That sounds completely reasonable, blah, blah, blah. So go to bed. They're waking me up every 15 minutes, half hour, whatever, checking my vitals. And then next thing I know, there is this man, like, I heard him come in, and I look over and there's this man just standing there by my bed, and finally turns on the smaller light, and he was from the lab, and I was still a little bit out of it and not feeling completely clear, and so it kind of triggered me a little bit, and I started panicking, and I got really mad, and I was like, you're not going to touch me until you go get my nurse. And he was like, you need to be cooperative. And I was like, I am being cooperative, go get my nurse. And so we went and got the nurse, and then he didn't come back. The nurse took my blood and gave it to him, but she felt really bad, and she was like, he was supposed to come, we left a message with the lab, sorry, you know, blah, blah, blah. So then she put a big, like, note on my door that said, any male staff, please check in at the nurse's station before entering the room. So that made me feel better. But when you've dealt with the things that I have, you just have to set up boundaries for yourself, and boundaries can be cold. So anyway, next day, they're bringing me little medicine cups full of water, because I had to get a certain amount of water in an hour, and I can't remember what it was, but I was shocked that I could only drink like a tablespoon of water, or not even that, and I just felt like my stomach was gonna burst. And then for breakfast, they brought me this congealed meat stuff. Blah. Even thinking about it makes me, ooh, I have to like tap myself right here. That's my mechanism, like when something is gonna make me gag, or if like I feel like I'm gonna throw up, I tap right here because it helps me. So anyway, it was like this meat that had been like pulverized. Blah, I can't even think about it. It's so gross. It's so gross. It was like not the consistency of baby food, but almost. It was horrible. Blah. And then Jell-O. They brought me like an ounce and a half of Jell-O, and I barely got half of that down. And that was my meal for breakfast. And then lunch, I told them not to bring me the meat anymore. So lunch was Jell-O and broth, and I couldn't even eat half of the Jell-O. It was just amazing. So I really struggled getting the water in, because I just, it put so much pressure on your stomach. And I don't like water that isn't freezing cold. And I couldn't put it in a mug with ice because they needed to measure. And finally, my nurse and I collaborated, and she figured out, because it's not rocket science, how to put ice and water in there and still be able to measure how much I'm taking in. Anyway, and then I had to walk around a few times during the day. And what was funny is that at the end of the first full day after surgery, I passed a lady in the hall, and I said, no, she said to me, she was like, oh, are you the other bariatric patient? And I said, yeah. And she goes, I was next to you in recovery. And I was like, I was like thinking in my head, sorry. And I said, yeah, I'm sorry, I was yelling. And she goes, no. She's like, no, I was so mad at that nurse. And she's like, I kept thinking, I hope that she helps her. I wish I could do something. And then she's like, and then I was praying for you. And just a really nice, sweet lady. So anyway, end of the first day, I was sleeping on and off a lot, and I wasn't in any pain because, they had me so medicated, but, they couldn't keep my oxygen up. So I had to wear oxygen, which I hated because I don't like things on my face. The only thing I can tolerate on my face is glasses, and that's it. But, so I had to wear oxygen and whatever. Well, you're supposed to go home on the you're supposed to go home on the third day. So you have your surgery, then you sleep that night, one night, and one more night. And then you're supposed to go home on the third day. So it was basically just me being in there, and I only saw my surgeon once, and twice, and I'll tell you about those in a minute. But I saw him once on the first day when he came in, and then It was just his team coming in, like his PAs and his resident and things like that. So the end of the second day is coming, and I'm supposed to go home the next morning, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, I don't feel ready to go home. I feel like I'm having a really hard time. Sorry, we have to turn on the car and move forward. I'm waiting to pick Blythe up from school. So we're gonna move to the front of the line. Whenever I'm at the front of the line, when Blythe comes out of school, she's always like, why are you in the front? I don't know, like I don't have anything better to do. Anyway, so the end of the second day is coming, and I am nervous to go home because I feel like I'm not hitting my fluid goals, and I am still, like, my oxygen is still pretty low, and I had a really bad headache that I couldn't get to go away, and so I just wasn't feeling ready to go home. So my surgeon comes in the second night, the night before I was supposed to go home, and it's just me and him in the room, and oh my gosh, I wish that somebody else had been in the room for this conversation, because their jaw probably would have hit the floor faster than mine. Like, and then I could have had witness to this conversation, because when I tell people this, they look at me like I'm making it up, and oh my gosh, yeah. Anyway, let's just proceed. So my surgeon comes in, and it's just he and I in the room, and he says, so you ready to go home tomorrow? And I said, I'm really not. I said, I'm struggling meeting my, my goals, and I can't walk very far without getting super dizzy, and, I'm still on this oxygen, and blah, blah. And I said, I would really like to stay one more night. And he says, well, if you stay one more night, you're going to fall into the 13% of patients who have to stay more than 2 nights. And I looked at him like, what? And my very first thought was, I don't give a what? Like, I don't care what percentage I fall into. I'm 100% concerned about me, not your stats or what. But one, I'm not a confrontational person. I'm very intimidated by a lot of people. And 2, I was a little dizzy and just dizzy and not, oh, that's a really nice purse. Dizzy and just not feeling it, and a lot of different things were happening at that moment in time. So, I wasn't going to speak my mind. And I was like, okay. And he said, so I'm going to go ahead and let you stay another night, but I don't want you to take advantage of me accommodating you. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but this isn't the Holiday Inn. Like, I'm not asking for a free night. I'm paying to be here. I'm paying you to be here. Like, what? And so he was like, I came in earlier today, and my PAs say that when they come in that you're always sleeping. And I was like, well, I wanted to be like, well, I just had major surgery, and let's list off the reasons why I'm sleeping. But I said to him, I said, well, they're giving me a ton of pain medicine. And he's like, well, then don't take it. Okay. I don't know about you, but when your nurse comes and has syringes of different medicines and says, these are ordered by your doctor, take them. Call me crazy, but I took them. Oh, and I was in pain. So he was like, if you're really in so much pain that you have to have that much pain medicine, then maybe I need to go back in and explore, because maybe we missed something. And I said, I've just been taking what they've been giving me. And he was like, okay. He said, they're giving you 2 syringes at a time. Only take 1. And I was like, okay. And then he's like, I'm not going to decrease your order, but they're going to still bring you 2, but only take 1. And I was like, all right. And he's like, and tomorrow I want you not sleeping at all. I want you working on your goals of getting all your fluids in, getting off your oxygen, and I want you up and around and walking. And I was like, okay. And he was just, if you're watching this, you know who you are, and your interpersonal patient doctor skills suck. Anyway, you're really good at what you do, but you suck as a nice person. So anyway, he left, and I felt like crap, and I called my mom bawling and was like, maybe I should just go home in the morning. And she was like, no, if you feel like you need to be there for another day, you stay there for another day. And so next day I had the same nurse, and I was so afraid to sleep. I only took half the pain medicine, which still left me with some pain that day, but it wasn't intolerable, and there was no way that I was going to take more because I didn't want to get in trouble. I was so nervous. Like, I was trying really hard to get all my water in. I was up walking probably more than I should have been. And then I would like try everything to stay awake. And about halfway through the day, my nurse comes in and she said, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm so tired." And she goes, "Okay." She said, "I shouldn't tell you this, but doctor is in surgery all day and he's not going to come up and catch you sleeping. So just go to sleep." And I was like, "Thank you." And I was out. So next day, he came in and he was like, "Are you ready to go?" And I said, "Yeah." You know, even if I was bleeding from every single incision and ready to pass out, I would have been like, "Yeah, I'm ready. Get me out of here." Because I didn't want another lecture about how I'm taking advantage. How I'm paying you to be here, yet I'm taking advantage. Sorry. Anyway, so that's where we're going to end it now. More stuff happened after that. It was just not the smoothest process, but that's okay. Look at my chin. It was all worth it because look at my chin. Oh, thanks for being here. Subscribe if you want to. I'll see you again on Saturday. I promise.